On the afternoon of May 25, 1979, the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 operating this flight was taking off from runway 32R at O'Hare International when its left engine detached from the wing, causing a loss of control, and the aircraft crashed less than 1 mile from the end of the runway. All 258 passengers and 13 crew on board were killed, along with 2 people on the ground.
One witness to the crash saying that immediately after the takeoff, about 15 seconds, part of the left engine...
You could see debris on the runway.
A loud rumbling noise. I got up from my desk and I could see this plane hovering, going from side to side.
Apparently the pilot was unable to abort his takeoff.
March 25, 1979. A McDonnell Douglas DC-10 aircraft operated by American Airlines crashes at Chicago International Airport. American Airlines Flight 191 was scheduled to fly from Chicago to Los Angeles International Airport. 250 passengers and 13 crew members boarded the plane. In command was Captain Walter H. Lux, age 53. He was flying the DC-10 since its introduction 8 years earlier. The co-pilot was First Officer James Dillard, age 49. Also on board in the cockpit was Flight Engineer Alfred Udovich, age 56. ATC gave permission for takeoff. By increasing the thrust, the plane gradually started running faster on the runway. When the plane reaches such a speed that it can leave the runway and rise into the air, we call that takeoff speed. As soon as the Flight 191 reached takeoff speed with the help of its 3 engines and rose into the air, an alarm went off in the cockpit. Just before the rotation, the flight crew heard a loud noise coming from the left wing. Because the pilots could not see the wing, they assumed engine number 1 had failed. Captain's instruments suddenly stopped. The pilots were still in the hope that they could fly the plane easily, even after the failure of 1 engine, because 2 engines were still in running condition, but their guess was wrong. The plane started shaking badly. The pilots could not understand how this plane could go out of control like this. If the speed of the plane was slow, then perhaps the pilot could have stopped the plane by applying brakes, but the plane had crossed the takeoff speed. The runway was almost finished, so it was impossible to stop the plane now. On the other hand, the way this plane went out of control, it seemed impossible to fly. This means that both the pilots were now in a do-or-die situation. The pilots could not understand what was happening with the plane, but Robert Graham, supervisor of maintenance for American Airlines, standing away from the plane, understood everything that the plane was in big trouble. He noticed that the number 1 engine was bouncing up and down quite a bit, and just about the time the aircraft got opposite his position and started rotation, the engine came off, went up over the top of the wing and rolled back down onto the runway. Before going over the wing, the engine went forward and up just as if it had lift and was actually climbing. It didn't strike the top of the wing on its way. Rather, it followed the clear path of the airflow of the wing, up and over the top of it, then down below the tail. The aircraft continued a fairly normal climb until it started a turn to the left. Approximately 50 seconds passed after takeoff. The plane had risen approximately 350 feet. Due to the engine being torn off, fuel started leaking from the fuel tank installed in the wings. This plane fell like an injured bird at a distance of about 1.5 kilometers from the airport. Within no time, the entire plane burst into flames. The DC-10 was completely destroyed. The plane's tank was filled with 21,000 gallons of fuel, so it took several hours for firefighters to extinguish such a massive fire. Unfortunately, no one could be saved in this accident, but the matter of relief was that the plane did not crash in the middle of the city. Otherwise, who knows how many more people would have lost their lives. Even though the pilots could not save the passengers, in their last moments, they made the plane crash in a ground away from the crowded area. Nevertheless, some vehicles on the road got damaged due to some debris from the plane. Even 4 people were injured, out of which 2 died. As terrible as this accident was, its causes were equally unresolved. After all, how can an airplane engine disintegrate? Was there any kind of explosion in the tank? or was there any fault in the maintenance? The National Transportation Safety Board started investigating the accident. They traced Flight 191's damage to American's decision to ignore McDonnell Douglas's instructions during a maintenance procedure that required removing the engine and the pylon connecting it to the wing. The DC-10's manual instructed workers to take off the heavier engine before detaching the pylon. But removing the engine and pylon as a unit saved about 200 man-hours per aircraft, according to the NTSB. They also decided to use a forklift, which wasn't precise enough to remove and reattach the engine without risking damage. But if damage during a maintenance check at American's facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 2 months earlier explained why the engine came off, it didn't fully explain why pilots lost control. According to the NTSB, hydraulic lines that powered other critical systems were severed when the engine and pylon broke away, leaving the aircraft unusually vulnerable to a stall and disabling warning systems. Imagine you are traveling in a car at a speed of 150 km per hour and your steering wheel gets jammed and even the brakes stop working. Something similar happened with Flight 191. The NTSB said it wasn't reasonable to expect Flight 191's captain, Walter Lux, and First Officer James Dillard to have recognized what was wrong with the aircraft in time to prevent a crash. Aerodynamic forces acting on the wing resulted in an uncommanded retraction of the outboard leading edge slats. As the aircraft began to climb, the damaged left wing, with no engine, produced far less lift than the right wing, which had its slats still deployed and its engine providing full takeoff thrust. The disrupted and unbalanced aerodynamics of the aircraft caused it to roll abruptly to the left until it was partially inverted, reaching a bank angle of 112 degrees, before crashing in an open field by a trailer park near the end of the runway. So the pilots were left with no option except to crash the plane. The fallout from the accident was, if nothing else, a call to action for the industry and its regulators. The investigation also revealed other DC-10s with damage caused by the same faulty maintenance procedure. The FAA slapped American and Continental with fines of $500,000 and $100,000 respectively for improper maintenance. Airlines were ordered to inspect their DC-10s for damage and stick to the Douglas-endorsed maintenance procedure. The FAA ordered improvements to the DC-10's warning systems and revised flight manual procedures for handling an engine failure. The rules started being followed properly, but unfortunately, 273 people had to sacrifice their lives for this.